Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and it's that segment where we bring you all the major stories from select national newspapers this morning. It gives you an idea of what's happening from the nooks and cranny. And as usual, we will begin with the Daily Trust. And it seems to be leading with a political development. We hear that Ganduje has been tipped as the APC national chair. That's the leading story from Daily Trust. With the riders, Tinubu, Shettima, ex-governor, ex-Kano governor, Uzodinma, two others. I mean, Tinubu, Shettima host ex-governor, Uzodinma and two others. And progressive governors seem to be backing the move. An announcement to be made soon. Jubilation in Kano. You want to get
what
the details?
What do you think about this thing?
Well,
I don't know. Ganduje is not the most popular APC member in the country right now. Not even in Kano, for instance.
You cannot discountenance the contribution to the making of this government. And well, politics is a give and take. They have to reward him somehow. I think it is between this and giving him a cabinet position. Whatever the calculations are, we're here. We'll keep watching and bringing all the developments to our readers at home. You want to get the details of that, please look up page 4. And two other stories, more knocks for FG over petrol price increase. Don't take Nigerians' patience for granted. We've been getting this race since yesterday, whatever that means. PMS price hike, provocative, invitation to crisis. This coming from the PDP, and prosperity coming after this temporary pain. Well, I hope you can see it. Like you said, we have been in the doldrum for too long. We may have to start busting the pipe to see light, it appears. And reps reject call to reverse increase. On whose sides are the House of Reps exactly?
Really, I read on the deliberations, they don't want anything that would stop any further increment, but somehow they're more interested in doing their usual oversight investigations that usually amounts to nothing. So well, I suppose it's just lip service, because they might have...
I hope we get to a point where we truly understand who these people are representing, themselves or their constituency. Is that a reflection of the views
I don't think so.
of their constituencies? We get to know. And two other stories on the front page of Daily Trust. Tinubu returns NEDC board members and management replaced by Buhari. This is a big statement. Nigeria's heading to debt overhang. This is coming from the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. And Hydra address inflation, food scarcity. Islamic scholars tell Tinubu. Two other stories quickly. We have villages adopt new rice maize production method to combat floods. And NEPC targets $5 billion earning from services export. And bandits flee as over 100 soldiers storm Kaduna forest. This is good news.
Yeah, this is the kind of story that you want to hear on the usual.
We don't want the fleeing, because they basically, the tradition is the same. They basically flee and regroup somewhere else and continue their wanton destructions. We hope for this time, it's not just about fleeing. They chase them down to wherever and nip this in the bud.
It's always about sustainability and consolidation, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's it on the front page of Daily Trust.
Let's turn our attention now to the front page of the This Day newspaper for today. From the very top, palliatives. Tinubu, Shettima meet Senate President, governors. NEC meets today. So hopefully they will come up with something a lot more tangible for Nigerians as far as cushioning the effect of subsidy removal and the prevailing incremental price of PMS in the country is concerned. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria says removal of manufacturing constraints best palliative. So at least that's good news for them. Petrol Marketer says we raise petrol price to keep members' business afloat. And I think we heard that first time yesterday, didn't we? From Mr. Alhaji Megandi, who pretty much said that if they don't do that, they can't afford to buy the next shipment of the product, which is quite unfortunate. SLA says retailers taking undue advantage of situation. House summons Kyari, oil marketers, and Ipman appeals for understanding. Subsidy removal, you are a hypocrite. Adebayo tackles Tinubu. Why? What are his thoughts? Do some further reading as the story continues on page 10. Below the nameplate, APC may have settled for Ganduje as new national chair. Pencils in Oyetola for national secretary. Ex-Osun governor not keen because of Guba bid. Okay. Adamu Omishere served us well, says party governors. Okay, so I mean, no further investigation, I suppose.
Somebody was mentioning to me that the governors are taking over. They have the presidents, they have the vice presidents, they're there, the Senate president, they want party chairman position. They are just, everywhere. Especially the 1990 to 2007 set.
Yeah, that class.
That
you have the president, you have the secretary to the government of the federation.
Yeah, anyway. Absolutely. And moving on to other stories, this time we are looking at the Nigerian Tribune, and the major story there is 7 key consequences of petrol price hike on Nigerians, and this is coming from experts. It said, profile solutions on how to mitigate hardship. PDP, CUPP say it is insensitive, provocative. COASU directs lecturers to go to work twice a week. And then PCL lacks powers to fix prices, fallen. And poor being choked, Tinubu adding salt to injury. Nigerians lament, and marketers suggest alternative energy options for motorists. And there's an interesting picture there which resonates with us, which is people carrying out trading activities on rail tracks, and this is the popular Oshodi area of Lagos State. We are conversant with that. This is the Indianization This is the Indianization of Nigeria. Exactly. If that word is correct. I don't understand. That is
not a positive thing.
It's not. And what's interesting is that these guys are doing it just a few meters away from some popular markets around them. So you get a space in the market and carry out your legal trading activities rather than have this whole place littered with small traders. And to other stories, tamper justice with mercy. Mesoma begs Jam. Give us power to prosecute criminals. Amuta tells Ekiti lawmakers. Court OK's FG prayer to protect witness in suit against Tukurmamu. And Senate wants employers to relax age requirement as preconditions for employment. It is criminal, obnoxious to compare Niger Delta agitators to northern bandits. This is coming from Edwin Clark. Warns against scrapping of amnesty program.
I think people are baiting the elder statesman to come up with some of this and outlandish remarks.
All right, and one more story, and this is coming from Amutan. She's saying, I'm clean, I'm not dirty. That's Tobi Amusa. It appears that every time a black man is at the saddle,
especially, I mean, there are certain genuine situations, especially with Kenya, for instance. Even the government is now clamping down on some of these drug performance-enhancing drugs. But Amusan has proven herself over and over again. I know that we've had some of our athletes who have really, been found wanting. But I think she deserves the benefit of doubt.
Every time somebody says, time the black skin does something,
she sets a record, there's always that investigation.
Well, let's hope that whatever investigation she's subjected to, she comes out clean. These are some of the persons that seem to be flying this country's flag at the international stage. And that's it from one of Nigeria's oldest newspaper, the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the front page of the Daily Independent. Nigerians are killed constantly with no one to stop perpetrators, according to Peter Obi. He was in Jos yesterday to mark his birthday. What's the new age now?
62.
62. He doesn't look 62, to be honest. I don't know what 62 looks like anyway, but it just feels like he looks a lot younger than that. Donate 100 bags of rice, 5 million to victims of attacks in Plateau Council. That's it. He was at Mangu, and we all know of the devastation there in Mangu. And you have a picture of he's still a very popular person, mind you. He won Plateau State in a very fantastic way in the 2023 presidential election. So it wasn't a particularly political gathering, but he's someone who enjoys quite a good amount of support. The big story, however, on the front page of the Daily Independent says, reps ask Tinubu to lift embargo on employment. Resolve to probe concession of airports by Buhari government. Confirm appointment of service chiefs, chief of defense staff. And in other news, the PDP is saying 617 naira per litre fuel price provocative, callous, unacceptable. Insist fuel should not sell for more than 150 naira per litre. PMS price hike threatening our businesses in Southeast, according to Ipman. There's a lot more from where all of this came from.
All right, and we're looking at the Punch, which is marking its 50th year in robust journalism. And the major story there is staying with the fuel price hike. Business operators panic, fear shutdown, job losses, hike to worsen manufacturers' woes. Many SMEs will die. MAN, LCCI laments. NLC considers the emergency meeting. And PDP slams FG as reps summons the NNPCL's boss. And there you find pictures also of major seizures of cannabis yesterday at the Nigerian Army headquarters. There's a photo montage there of the various seizures, a very large quantity. I wonder where people find the money to do this when they are struggling to transport ourselves from point A to B. Well,
they say when there's a will, there's always a way.
Yeah. Absolutely. And moving on to other stories quickly, we have soldiers arrest Beninese, one other with truckloads of cannabis. And drug dealers forfeit 111 abandoned vehicles to the federal government. Mesama appears before reps panel, begs jam, and train attack.
They made her appear before panel?
Court OK secret trial of Boko Haram negotiator. And to other stories, renowned Nigerian writer Kole Omotosha, one who will be there to our newspaper analyst this morning, dies at 80 because he's also a writer. And then NPCL monopoly ends as marketers' fueled vessel arrives. Well, I wonder whether the marketers' prices will be cheaper because the NNPC has or should have easier access to Forex than they do. Well, let's see how the dynamics plays out. And questions, anxieties as Tinubu drags feet on appointments of ministers. That's it from the Punch.
Yeah, he's running out of time, so I wouldn't want to be in his shoes right now. The sooner the better. The Nation newspaper is up next. Tinubu Akpabio, governors strategize over palliatives. Agency gives conflicting petrol consumption figures. This is a page 4 story. Adeleke swears in lawyer as health commissioner. I don't know whether you saw this. It was going viral yesterday. So I think he was attending a public event, and I think he was announcing some of his commissioner nominees or the portfolio for various, and he mistakenly said Minister of Information. And a lot of people were wondering, you don't have ministers for the State Executive Council, you only have commissioners. Maybe it was a gaffe.
When you dance too much,
probably
you ignite some testosterone, that makes you think.
Well,
playground.
People were having a field day, with that particular gaffe on social media. UTME result forgery. Mesoma begs jam. Well, let's see how that goes. Experts project firm up of Naira in 6 months. What does that mean? Take a look at the story on page 3. 1.959 trillion Naira allocation windfall for federal government, states, and councils. Monthly Federation account inflow jumps by 148.4% following petrol subsidy termination or removal. And how court granted 72.2 billion in damages against EcoBank in favor of Honeywell. Yeah, not a good time for EcoBank nor its shareholders or account holders at this point. You have a group picture there of the vice president swamped by lawmakers. Former, I can see Mr. Philip Aduda's face there, and some of the members of the 9th Assembly, I believe. Whatever that story is about, you can find more details on the pages of the Nation newspaper.
All right. We now have joining us in the studio I'm not sure which is the right coordination or designation now, because I've worked with him in various fora.
I'm sure whichever one you use would be okay.
The head of the Daily Trust Foundation, Dr. Theophilus Abba, seasoned journalist, writer. Well, let me leave the other designation so that I don't create a problem for you after this show. You've listened to most of the papers we have reviewed this morning, and I'm sure you are also not insulated from what has become our fate in the last couple of days, precisely in the last 48 hours. And here the Daily Trust is reporting that more knocks for federal government over price increase, And CISLAC, among other civil society groups, are saying they seem to be taking Nigerians for granted. Political parties are describing the latest move as callous and insensitive. But what do you make of it as a Nigerian?
Well, the issue of the hike in the price of petrol, I don't think it was unexpected. I think it's the percentage that, shocked us. Because two things happened. The government has said it was no longer going to pay what they call subsidy. Even so, a lot of people still doubt if there was that kind of a subsidy, over 400 naira or 300 something naira on each liter of fuel. By the time you do the arithmetic, you will discover that some things don't add up. If you are projecting 3 trillion in 6 months, and you are telling us that on about, and you're actually consuming, some say it 92 million liters per day, some say 60 something, we don't really know. But by the time you multiply that excess by the number of millions of liters we're consuming, you discover that what they said was the budget for subsidy was much more. So that is a different argument. But then when you removed subsidy, in quote now, and you allow Naira to float in such a manner that there is no concession for buying dollar, being given to those who import fuel, they will know that definitely the law of demand and supply will set in. The lot of people will go for the dollar, and the price of the dollar will go up. And if the cost of buying the dollar goes up, it means that the cost of importation, fuel,
right?
That is, basic analysis. Now, my own concern is that it's like even the government was shocked, and I'm surprised that they were shocked, because when you go into such a project, there's what we call risk analysis. You have to do your risk analysis. Now, if we do this, what are the implications? How will other aspects of the economy react to it? And what are the consequences? You do a kind of simulation. And when you do your simulation, you now know, okay, in the next 1 month, this is what will happen. So season, the price of crude oil goes up. And the price of crude oil goes up, the price of the refined product will also go up. All these things ought to have been taken into account
Dr.
before arriving at, say, we are removing
Isn't it possible that they have weighed their options, they have done the analysis and said, listen, it is worth taking the risk? Is it not possible that that might be the case?
But from what we are seeing, it's not like they did a thorough analysis. And I even think the issue of removing subsidy, it wasn't really in the president's speech. I think it was like an afterthought. So, you see, there are a lot of things. Now, we are talking about Dangote refinery pumping out petroleum products by July. I don't think it will happen.
August.
Is it August? I don't think it's going to happen. Because even that, I think Dangote was not the also they show that is asking for license to import fuel. Now, the NNPC told us that the refineries will work in the first quarter of this year. It hasn't happened. They say, it will work in the second quarter of this year. It hasn't happened. NNPC is still importing so much. So you see, the reason why Nigerians are shocked is because what we earn cannot cope with the current rate. Because by the time you increase the price of petroleum products, the price of other things will go up. So I am feeling that there's a whole lot of things that were not done properly. It's like putting the cart before the horse. There's supposed to be the horse who will drive the cart. For instance, if you really wanted to remove the subsidy, one of the things you ought to have done, and I've said it again and again, was to make sure that transportation became cheaper. Now, as long as people have to drive their cars to their offices, as long as people have to use taxis, to move, the cost of transport will be higher, and the cost of other things will jump up, and people will experience so much pain.
Right.
So I'm thinking that there was no, groundwork, preparation to say, okay, we'll do A, B, C, D, then do that. If they had said, okay, in the first 6 months of administration, we are going to ensure that there's a good public transportation, going to put this in order, put that in order, going to ensure that the refineries begin to pump out. Even if it is just 10% of what we consume. You understand? We're going to ensure that 6 months will not destroy the country, will not kill the country. If you had waited for maybe 6 months before doing these things, the shock Right. Wouldn't have, I mean, what it is now.
Do you think, Dr. Abba, at this point, there is room for course correction? Or should we just double down on this and see how things pan out?
Well, you see, if there are corrections that should be made, I was thinking that quickly, you know, we should have luxury buses that can move people from place to place at a cheaper rate. That is number one. Then we have pump so much money into what we call turnaround maintenance of the refinery and major repairs. You know, NNPC should let us know what is happening. Even if it is only one of the refineries that will start pumping, refined products. It will help a whole lot. Reduce minimum the cost of freight. Now, something happened to me, you know, earlier in the year. I was in the Netherlands, and we're discussing, and in the process, I say, no, Nigeria, the Netherlands, one of the, buyers of Nigerian crude oil, but then they're also one of the sellers of refined products. And everybody laughed at me. And I was wondering, why are they laughing? So somebody said, you have the crude oil, you know, you are selling. Why can't you refine your crude oil? Why would you come here to buy the crude oil? It didn't really make sense. Even to the people of Black, it didn't really make sense. They say, well, it doesn't. How can you buy what you have? You understand? So I don't see any reason why, even if it is like partnership with big refineries, you know, why we cannot refine this product in Nigeria. You see, there is no way you can explain away. At times you say, oh, the cost of refining may be more higher than the cost of importing. Some come up with that argument. But as long as we have refinery and we refine this product in Nigeria, there is a way, even psychologically, to make us to feel like, oh, this is coming out from our own country, not necessarily coming from abroad. But as long as we're exposed to the vagaries of international trade, we'll keep on shocking Nigerians.
You talked about the government itself being surprised, and Ahmed was talking about changing costs. And you've talked about quick intervention. I'm sure it's something Nigerians are really looking towards, because we are all at the principle. Any other thing that doubles down on where we are right now will just mean falling off the cliff. But moving away from economics to politics, and all of a sudden, Ganduje is back in the limelight.
Okay.
At first, we were seeing it was everywhere around the villa. Is either welcoming the president from one trip or leading governors to
visible former governor of
Actually, what they have done, I think, is politically correct to bring in Ganduje as national chairman of the party. You see, after the election, we discovered that the Northwest produced more votes for the president. INEC figures say so. You understand that the Northwest produced more figures. And the question was, how do you compensate the Northwest? The Northeast are taking the vice presidency. Then one of the big positions in the government then became the Senate president. In order to correct the religious imbalance, let's give it to a Christian from the South. Then a Christian from the North Central became the Secretary of Government of the Federation. And so, Barrow and the former governor of Zamfara State were insisting that they were going to contest for the Senate presidency. So Ganduje coming from the Northwest, and Kano, one of the states that gave more votes to Tinubu, it's a very strategic decision they have made. With that, the Northwest is now elevated, in terms of power sharing in this administration.
But it's not a cabinet position. So
it's not a cabinet, but being a national chairman of a party is a big position. It's quite a big position. And I want to tell you, see, what has happened in APC is this. Before before the election, there was something that happened which was really terrible. Where NWC positions were shared among governors, among powerful guys in the government who were trying to position themselves to benefit from whoever got the ticket of the party. Now, of all the positions in the NWC, the only one that Buhari got was the national chairman. He said, look, he nominated a list of persons, all of them thrown out by the governor. So, okay, please, even if you are throwing out all these lists,
just give me the national chairman.
So he gave him the national chairman. Now, what happened was this. As national chairman, Abla Adamu was seen to be listening to some elements in the presidency who were looking at the body language of the president. Who were saying, okay, what would the president think? He may not have opened his mouth to say it, but what would the president think? And the worst thing that Babla Adamu did was to come out to say, Lawan, what do you call it?
Ahmed Lawan is a
consensus candidate of the. You see, it went contrary to the spirit, to the disposition of the country. You know, and so if he did that, and you now have Tinubu coming as president, it's very clear that no matter what he does, he can't be in the good books of the... Now, and definitely the national chairman of the party must be somebody who thinks the way the president is, somebody who can feel what the president feels, somebody who can do, I mean, who can act on whatever the president wanted. You know, before the elections in the National Assembly, there were issues where Abdullahi was saying, no, we didn't understand it. And Tinubu say, well, this is what we wanted. And so it is so smooth that Ganduje coming is going to make correct this perception that the Northwest has not benefited, number one. And
they do have the Deputy Senate President, which I think is also from Kano. But let's double down on some of the critical talking points, which is the Northwest itself and the position of Kano. We know of the votes that Kano has every election cycle. I mean, everybody's trying to get as much as they can from Kano. What does Ganduje's presupposed nomination for the chairmanship role says about the APC's calculation? One, the fact that he has lost Kano State, right? Not just in the presidential election, even though they have a significant amount of votes to look back on, but they have lost it to the former Minister of Defense, the former governor of Kano, Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, who appears to be the man running the show right now in Kano as far as the popularity of NNPP and the Kwankwasia movement is concerned. Did well in the presidential election, won the state election, won majority of the seats in the National Assembly. What does that say about APC's move to select Ganduje, who seemingly is not popular anymore, even within his state of origin? And one can liken it to Senator Abdullah Adam when he was national chairman. He lost his home state to the Labour Party, even lost his polling unit, I believe, in the presidential election. What does that say about the party picking out some of these people who are losing, so to say, their political currency in their own constituency?
Okay, well, I tend to disagree with you a little bit because Ganduje had won elections. You know, he won his governorship election, I think 2 times. The presidential election for Buhari, he won. Now, the issue in Kano is actually a personality thing between Ganduje and Kwankwaso. And even the fact that, if you look at it, the fact that Kwankwaso moved to NNPP does not mean that Kwankwaso is far away from Tinubu. You understand? So I also see, I think I've been read interviews by Kwankwaso saying that, oh, he will even prefer to work with Tinubu than any other, I mean the presidential candidate in those days. So I'm thinking that there is a personality issue, but that does not mean that Ganduje's political relevance has been diminished. He has a lot of followers. I think one of the stories said there was jubilation in Kano. You know, there was actually jubilation. I don't think we can write him off and so it's a political failure. Ganduje is not a political failure. I mean, from what I know, you know, but the fact is that there's this personality clash, and the politics of Kano had revolved around personalities. You know, so he is still relevant. I think he's still relevant politically, and in the Northwest, if you mention the name Ganduje, I don't think it's a pushover, you know, as at now. If you look at all the political leaders in the Northwest, he stands out. He, Kwankwaso, and after that, I think somebody like, Sule Lamido, you know, is diminishing, kind of. Yeah, you don't hear about Sule Lamido again. So when you go to the Northwest, I say, who are they? You know, you have to mention Ganduje.
All right.
So he is, let me use the word, even symbolically, he well represents the Northwest. And that is why I think I
think there is some validity to Sunday's point about perhaps using this as an opportunity to deny him an opportunity to sit in the Federal Executive Council by being a minister. And this is the second best option.
No, but being a national chairman of a party is a very powerful position.
Right. Well, that is where there is party supremacy. Some people would argue.
No, the supremacy, you see, when you talk about party supremacy, you have to align with the president who is in power.
All right.
You understand? You can't
I wish we had time to take more of these views, but we'll continue to keep our eyes eyes on the ball. And if you emerge, we would continue to bring you development around how that will pan out. We are out of time. We would have gotten his views on the anxiety around the ministerial list, but I'm sure the coming days would reveal. Thank you very much, Doctor, for finding time to be here.
Thank you so much.
And to providing us with those expose. And for viewers at home, I hope we have brought you entertainment, we have brought you information, we have brought you education. And thank you very much for allowing us free access into your living room. Let's do this again tomorrow. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
My name is Abdullah Ahmed. Thank you for your time and company. We'll see you again next time. Good morning.